Welcome everyone to the Moisky News for January 3rd, 2020. And I'm somewhat surprised I'm doing this, but Labour are at it again. Well, I say Labour, Jeremy Corbyn is. Labour has decided to table an amendment to the EU Withdrawal Bill to extend the transition period unless a comprehensive deal has been agreed upon by a certain date, i.e. the end of June. They want a trade deal secured by then, when we have until the end of the year. But we must have it done early because Labour wants to ensure we don't leave and have to operate under WTO terms. That is, WTO terms, a very heavily debated whether it is beneficial or not to the United Kingdom and a subject for another day. The really important aspect of this that we should agree on and discuss is that this kind of puts us in a very odd position. Firstly, this bill is doomed to fail because the Tories hold a majority that outnumbers all other parties combined. And if party lines are drawn, they're going to lose. They might be able to appeal to some Tory MPs, but a lot of them that were what are more commonly known as Ramonas lost their seats, or were expelled and then lost their seats, to Conservatives, who undoubtedly the whips will get in line very quickly. The other aspect of this that is interesting is that the Prime Minister kind of prevented an extension a couple of weeks ago. You remember in Parliament when he tabled his bill and included a little detail that says we will not be extending and we will ban or legalise banning any extension? So riddle me this, Mr. Corbyn, since this is you that tabled the motion. How on earth do you expect to get this through? This feels like you are intentionally doing it to look good, which I understand. You are on your way out. And of course, when you're on the backbenches, no one's going to listen to you. But you want to stay as relevant as possible for as long as possible. So I can understand why you would want to table this. And it should also be recognised that this is arguably a legitimate position to hold if you believe WTO terms are bad. Or if you do not believe the government can get a deal within the next 11 to 12-ish months. But as the country has gone through a general election, a number of people have placed their faith within this Prime Minister to deliver on what he says. Last night when I was doing a truck stream on Omegon Plays, I was discussing this briefly, and I touched on the fact that Boris has a remarkably contagious positivity. Even I have to admit, I find it quite intoxicating, because he's not approaching this as the country in a more pessimistic manner. He is outright saying, we can do this because we have the ability to do it. If he delivers, I don't see any contender coming from the Labour Party being able to step up and truly challenge him for the first 5 years. But it will be certainly very interesting to see if anyone can. Now, to go back to what this amendment is, it is an extension on the implementation phase to go up to 2023, which would be quite the extension. Now, I also understand another issue in that this would grant us more time to negotiate a trade deal, and this seems somewhat sensible from the perspective of, look at how other countries have managed this. When it came to trading with the EU, it took years, not singular. One final issue for Labour is this kind of continues to contradict a muddled stance Labour has when it comes to Brexit, with many believing that this will yet again be an example of Labour attempting to block Brexit. On the screen now is the EU Withdrawal Bill extension amendment thing. Yes, I'm very technical, I know. As you can see, a Minister of the Crown must seek to secure agreement in the Joint Committee to a single decision to extend the implementation period by 2 years in accordance with Article 132 of the Withdrawal Agreement, unless one or more condition in subsection 2 is met. Those conditions are, it is before the 15th of June 2020, an agreement on the future trade relationship has been concluded, and the House of Commons has passed a motion in the form set out in subsection 3, and the House of Lords has considered a motion to take note of the government's intention not to request an extension. Labour have also justified this in an explanatory statement on the amendment, which says this new clause would restore the role for Parliament in deciding whether to extend transition to avoid a WTO Brexit. Hypothetically, if this passed, the only way for us to depart the EU on WTO terms, or dodge the law, would be for the House of Commons and House of Lords to pass a motion approving the departure on those terms. However, since the Prime Minister has already pushed in the direction of, it's not happening, we're leaving regardless of a deal or not, I don't see how this can go through. There are other amendments that have been tabled, which include the right to protect for unaccompanied child refugees to be reunited with their family after Brexit. The revised wording of the bill removed a government commitment to strike a deal with the EU so child refugees can be reunited with their family in the UK even after free movement ends. This one is a highly contentious issue, going to discuss it another time. And on one other amendment, Northern Ireland especially, Labour sought to require the government to deliver full transparency on the implications of the Ireland-Northern Ireland Protocol, including barriers to trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Again, another issue for another day. With this, I'd very much like to know what you think. Whether you think this is a very desperate attempt to appear good while on your way out, or whether you think this has some legitimacy to it. I do tend to think that while Jeremy Corbyn failed to become Prime Minister, he does have his heart in the right place sometimes. It's just a lot of the other times he gets caught out in what is more commonly known as rather amusing bad optics incidents that all seem to tie together and paint a rather unfortunate picture that will plague him for the remainder of his totally not career politician career. Anyway, as a final thing, I will be streaming here tonight, 9:30pm GMT with Chops LP, topics yet to be decided. So if I don't see you there, have a lovely weekend.